For the next one, we're going to be going into Ignite 302, building resume slash finances. So this one is more of a like a practical one, very like more applicable that we're going to be doing something here right now. So we're going to give you guys time to like go and make your own resume too. That's why we had you guys bring your laptops. Um, so the whole reason why we wanted to do this is because, yeah, Ignite is supposed to be for like helping you guys to understand what we believe in and we value as a ministry, but we do want to prepare you guys and give you guys like practical things that you guys can use for your lives at school too. So one of the things is building a resume, and so if you guys look at the first one, it says the purpose of building a resume. So basically, the reason why we're doing this is because this is, like I keep saying, it's a very practical way you can be obedient to what God is calling you to right now. So basically, you guys are in school, and a lot of you guys realistically are not going to be sent off to missions. Maybe in the future, but like while you guys are in school, a lot of you guys are going to stay in school for the duration of like the 3, 4, 5 years. And so, in order to be obedient to where you've been called, like one of the ways to do that is to make a resume, because that is the one of the ways you're going to be able to get a job. That's one of the ways you're going to be able to go into your field of influence that God is calling you to. Um, so number two, what is a resume? Do I need one? Jen, can you read that paragraph for us? So the main thing I want to highlight there is a lot of times we feel like ashamed, or not ashamed, but like shy to say things like, oh yeah, I'm good at this, or yeah, my strength is that. And so like for an example, when you have interviews with like your boss, or when you have interviews for your internship or whatever, a lot of times they're going to ask you like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. But a lot of times, like even with our friends, we feel very shy and we don't want to brag about ourselves because we feel like that's like being cocky and that's being prideful. But as you guys make your resume, just know like it's okay to take ownership of the gifts that God's given you. Like if you know that you're good at like coding, like say you're good at coding and like show everything that you've done, because this is one of the ways that you can really steward the gifts that God's given you, because He hasn't given that to everyone. So don't feel shy as you make your resume. Don't feel like, oh, like I don't know if I want to like brag about myself, but just know that it's okay to do that. Because I know like as Asians, especially, like we can have like kind of that like, oh, like I'm not gonna really say anything about myself unless they say it first. But not for this one. Um, just skipping through. So number three, it's how to build one. We're gonna go over. We're gonna give you guys like time to build it later, so we can just like skip through that right now. But there's for building a resume, there's many different options. There's many different overviews and like formats depending on like where you look online or what who you get help from. But this is just one example of one. So then if we skip through that, if we go to number four, just some practical things to keep in mind. Always cater your resume to each employer. So for an example, like if I'm applying to like a server job, I'm not going to talk about all the things that I've done with kids, you know, like I'm gonna show the different ways that I have served other people, and I have experience in like the food industry or like the customer service industry. So keeping that in mind too, that you're not gonna have like one set resume, but you're gonna cater it and you're gonna like redo it depending on who you're giving it to. A second one, put your most relevant skill or current employer on the top. So make sure you do it from like in order of time. So whatever is most recent to whatever is latest. And the first one should be the most important, and the last one should be the least important or least applicable. And then always have an updated copy of your resume on your computer or like your Google Drive or anything for easy access. Make sure to keep formatting the same throughout the whole resume. So if you're using one font, make sure you do that from the beginning to the end. If you're doing bullet points, make sure not to skip to like numbers and like things like that. Um, Make sure it's present tense for your current job. I think that's what a lot of people miss. So like when my friends send me their resumes to ask, I always notice like, oh, their current job is sometimes it's past tense, or their past jobs are in present tense. So that's something to keep in mind, to be aware of. Like whatever you're doing right now, you do in the present tense, but whatever you've done before and you've completed, you write that in the past tense. Um, Make sure to spell check, and then make sure to highlight relevant accomplishments and experience for your previous jobs or even education. So kind of like what we talked about earlier about taking ownership of the gifts that God has given you. Things not to do. Don't include any information that may screen you out. So like age, religion, political affiliation, salary, like things like that. And don't lie on your resume. So if you know how to speak a language, or if you don't know how to speak a language, don't say you know how to speak a language. If you don't know how to do something, don't say you do. That's different than like taking ownership of the gifts that God's given you, because this is this is something that could be very serious. But yeah, so just by show of hands, who's a freshman? Okay, and then who's a sophomore? And then Kate, are you the only junior? Okay. Okay, so we have like a general timeline for you guys, just so you guys can keep in mind as you guys go through college. So for freshmen, what we recommended was during your first year, just explore like the clubs and the different things that your campus has to offer. See what kind of organizations there are, see what kind of clubs there are. Make sure you visit office hours on your campus and talk to your professors, get to know them, and meet your faculty and staff. And then so just generally like finding your place on campus and kind of figuring out how you fit into everything. And then for sophomore year, we recommended creating a LinkedIn profile. So that is kind of like Facebook for work. So what it has is online, it has like a place for your picture, it has a place for like your experiences, it has a place for like your accomplishments. And what's even cool about LinkedIn is that if you are working under someone right now, you can have them like kind of like you. So you know how on Facebook you can like them, or you can like bump their posts. So on LinkedIn, what they have is like you have a place for like accomplishments or um, things like that, and then your previous employers can like that, or like say like, oh, I approve of that, or like I give credit to that skill, or and they can like rate you, so they can leave like a review on your LinkedIn. So then like in the future, when your future employers come, they can read like, oh, this person is legit, that was their previous employer, and this is like the review that they left for this person. So that's why we also recommend creating a LinkedIn profile earlier. I think for me, I didn't create one until this year. So that was my fault. So I have my resume, but I didn't create a LinkedIn profile. And I wish that I did, just because of the fact of like networking, first of all, because it shows you how many connections or friends you have. So the more friends or connection you have, it's kind of like the more legitimate you look. And also just because of I wasn't able to have my previous employers like recommend me or like support me in the skill or like the experiences that we've had. So that would have really helped for my credibility, or like a letter of reference, recommendation or something like that. Um, and then also in your sophomore year, kind of figure out like, oh, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? Trying to see like, okay, like what do I enjoy spending time in? And then as you figure out like what you like and what you enjoy, seeing, okay, what kind of jobs and what kind of career paths kind of align with that, you know? So like if I like, for me, if I like working with kids, like one of the easy ways to work with kids is like going to education, or going to like behavioral therapy, or going into different things like that. So just seeing where your passionate is, and then taking more practical steps about that. Junior year, we said we recommend joining a mentorship program, or finding like people in your field of interest to like mentor you or to talk to you. So if you are interested in something, just talking to someone, be like, hey, like kind of interested in this, like what do you do on a daily basis? Can you let me know a little bit more? And if you are for sure about it, like actually like having them mentor you and having them give you practical steps and advice in terms of what to do and what to, on the steps to take. And then you guys can go to recruiting fairs. A lot of college campuses have like job fairs. USC, I always get like emails every week about like a job fair. So there's always things going on our campus. I know UCI, it was a little bit more low key, but each college campus has a career center. So there are resources that are given to you, and there are things that they offer. Sometimes it's just not as easily broadcasted or made known as other campuses. So each campus does have that. So I would recommend looking that up, and then also seeing what you can do during the summer. Kind of like sophomore, junior years, kind of when people start working over the summer, they get internships, they want to do something more in terms of like their career wise during the summer, instead of just like playing around and just having a fun summer. And then by your senior year, you should already have an internship. Your LinkedIn profile should already be made. And then you should be seeking opportunities to network on and off campus and get to know like future employers. So that's like very practical stuff. So this is like for you guys to have, and you guys can like refer back to as you guys make your resume and as you guys just get older and go through college. There are, no matter where you go, there's always going to be different opinions about like, oh, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. But this is just what we like as BTM staff, and what we decided, like, oh, this is kind of what we did, and this is what helped us. So we just wanted to provide you guys with like a general outline and recommendation. But just so you know too, like on your campus, like I said earlier, like your career center, they have so many services. So like they have a service for helping you write your resume. They have like official people who work on that. And so you bring like your resume in, whether it's a drop-in appointment or you make an appointment, they review it for you and they tell you, oh, fix this, fix that. Oh, I would say do something differently. And they'll like critique your resume. And so I've used that a lot for you. When I was at UCI for undergrad, I used that to prepare for my grad school apps because I needed a resume. And so I use that service and it's free. And then they also have things like reviewing cover letter. They have practice like interviews. Online, they have resources like sample resumes, sample cover letters. They have like outlines like this too, like pointers and what to do, what not to do. So like your school has a lot of resources, but a lot of people just don't know about it. So we're here to tell you guys too, like use your school resources. But then overall, the reason why we like push you guys to build a resume is just because as you guys make your resume and as you guys kind of see, okay, where has God taken me and what have I done in the past, it'll help you have greater vision for the future, because you're not going to know where you're going to go unless you see where you've already been. So for an example, like for me, um, uh, during my sophomore junior yearish, I was like, okay, like what am I gonna do with my life? Like what am I gonna do with my future? And so I kind of looked, okay, so like what have I done before? And as I like kind of made my resume, I was like, okay, like I've tutored a lot, I've worked with kids a lot, and I actually enjoyed that. I've enjoyed like helping people learn, and I've enjoyed being more in the education field. So that kind of helped me see, okay, so then do you want me to go into this area because this is like a passion and a heart that I have, and I know not everyone has that heart. So it helps you have greater vision for your future, and it also helps you realize like what makes you unique in the heart that God has given you. Because like I said earlier, like just because you like comp sci doesn't mean someone else likes comp sci. That is a passion that you have. So taking ownership of that as well. And so as you make your resume too, it'll help you be proactive, because I feel like a lot of times what's easy for Christians is kind of like, okay, I'm just going to take a step back and I'm just going to like sit and like go through school, and I'm going to go through church on the weekends, and I'm going to serve on the weekends. And that is very good, and that's like what we're supposed to do, but we are also called to go out and make disciples. We're also called to go out and live in this world too, to be in this world but not of this world. So how can you do that if you don't have a job? How can you do that if you don't go into other places beyond your school, you know? So just honestly, very practically speaking, like uh this is one thing that you can do to take another step into like your calling, because a lot of people like ask like, what am I called to do, what am I supposed to do? But this is one thing that you can do. And as you do it, like you ask God for wisdom, like what should I ask God for wisdom and discernment, like, okay, this internship is available for me, is it wise for me to step through this, should I do this during this time, or just because the door is open should I not go through it, you know? And then as you do that too, you'll ask God to like open doors, and you'll see like which doors you really want open and what you really prioritize, and then God will lead you through that way as well. And just in general too, we are called to be either goers or senders. And so if we're not going, we're sending people, and that is either through like prayer or finances. But how can you finance people if you don't have a job? How can you finance people if you don't have the means of making money? So if you really do want to prioritize like supporting people on missions, and like making sure that just you partner with whatever God's doing in this world, like being able to financially support people is just a very like they need it. Like you can't do anything unless you have money. Really, you can't go on missions, you can't do all those things to a certain degree if you don't have money. So that's just also a way that you can be faithful with what you've been given and obedient to what God is calling you to do. So if you guys go back to like the beginning, there is a sample resume. It says like Kelly R. Jones. This is like a random one that we found online. But as you guys can see, on the top is her heading. So So I think it's on, yeah. So on the resume is on the back page, but on the front page on number 3, if you guys see, it says how to build one. How do I build one? And then there's A heading, B objective, C work history, and there's the outline. So that's what I'm going to be referring to when I talk about this resume. So when you look at the Kelly R. Jones, her heading, your heading basically is just your name. Your name is generally bigger than everything else. And then you have your address, contact information, phone number, and email. And then a lot of people have like a break in between, like a line or kind of like something in between to show, okay, this is my header and this is everything else. And then you have an objective. So what is the objective of your resume? What are you trying to get? Are you trying to get an internship? Are you trying to get a job at the bank? Are you trying to get a research position? What is your objective? And then next in this resume, they added a summary, like a brief overview of just like everything that they've done. So they have their work experience, they have their schooling, they have like their skills with the Microsoft Office, Windows, and Internet. For our outline that we gave you for number 3, we didn't add a summary section. We kind of just broke it down to work history, education, and skills. But that's up to you guys. I think personally for me, I feel like it's kind of redundant to do a summary and then the education experience and then everything else. But like I said, your resume is up to you guys, so you guys can decide how you want to present yourself. And then afterwards, what people typically do is they put their education. So they put like the school, and then on the side, as you can see, it said for her it was Bachelor of Business Administration and Finance, comma May 2016. So she put her degree. So she was gonna get a bachelor in business, and then she put the date that she was predicted to graduate or she already graduated. And then she put the school, and then you put your GPA on the bottom too. And then if you do have like honors, like Latin honors, like magna cum laude or things like that, you could put that there too. But that is typically, you don't know about that until you graduate, because that's like the top 1%, top 1.5%, and things like that. And then she also put like courses that are relevant to what she wanted. So she wanted an auditor position, so she put okay, I've taken all these courses and that has to do with the position that I want. And so that means like I have enough knowledge and like I've learned enough in order to take this position. And then later she put her experience. She talked about her jobs. She put 2 things. She put her internship and then her clerk job. So for that too, you put your the title of your position. So it was an auditor internship, or on the second one it was accounts payable / bookkeeping clerk. And then you put the dates that you did it. So on the month and the year, and then the month and the year. You don't have to be so specific and put the date, but just generally the month and the year is good enough. And then you put the location of where you did it, and then the bullet points underneath are just like descriptions about your job role. So in the bullet points too, I would rank them from the first bullet point you do to being like the most important roles that you had. So if like let's say I'm a secretary, like my first bullet point probably wouldn't be like, oh, like organize the back desk or something like that. You know, you would put something more important or more like wow at the front. So I would recommend putting it from like most important or like most serious, I guess, to the least. And then she put her activities on the bottom. So like different things you do, like clubs. Are you in a different organization? Are you an RA on the side? Like whatever you may do. And even like, I know some people put church stuff too, but I think it depends on what you're doing and like what you're going for. So just keeping in mind too, like a lot of places do consider like church stuff to be kind of like community service. So that could be something that you wanted to, if you guys did want to put also. So yeah, so we're gonna give you guys time to like make your resume, and we wanted to give you guys time to do that too because we just wanted to help you guys, and we wanted to help you guys create one if you guys have never created one, or if you do have one, if you guys have any questions, maybe we could just help you guys look it over. So that's why we asked you to bring your laptops. So if you guys could open up your laptops. If you have a resume, I would say open that up. But if you don't have a resume, I would suggest making one on Google Drive or Word. Um, and then we could start doing that right now. Um, do you guys want another copy of an example? Like, I could send you guys mine if you want. But if you guys feel like this is good enough, then I don't have to. Um, but can you raise your hand if you want me to send you mine? Okay, I will get your guys' email and then I'll send it to you right now. But if you guys could open up your laptops and start making it, I guess start with the header first, and then we'll kind of like go through each section. So experiences, how far back? I would say, so if you're a freshman, I would say go back until maybe your sophomore or junior year of high school because you just started school, you know? If you're a sophomore, maybe like your senior year of high school. But ideally, what you want to do is you don't want to have high school stuff. But they know, like your employers and everyone knows too, like if you're freshman or sophomore, that's that can be helped. But the goal is to be like, oh, not a junior or senior and only have like high school stuff, you know? You want to have more like relevant, not relevant, but more recent things that you've done at your school or at things that are more related to college. Oh, and something just so you guys can know too. This is something that I had this thing at school where I was meeting with like LAUSD recruitment officers, so people who like hire the people for LAUSD. And what they were telling me is that for your current job or something that you're currently doing, try to aim for 3 bullet points, and then something that you've done in the past, do 2 bullet points. So kind of just like a general frame of reference in terms of like how long your experience or thing should be. Um, because everyone knows too, kind of like you, to a certain degree, you kind of like BS the stuff on your resume, or you kind of like use the verbs and you kind of use the things that make yourself like sound so much better. So they know that too. So just do like 2 and then 3, so it's not too long. But yeah. Oh, and then Matt brought up a good point where it's like he has a lot of stuff for one of his things. What I would recommend and what I have too is I have one general big resume where it's just like where I have everything that I've done, all my experiences, and like all the bullet points about all the descriptions. And then depending on what job or position that I'm looking for, I kind of like take things out and I just cut things here and there and I make a new one. And yeah, and then I keep one general like database or something, so I don't have to like redo it each time. PD is going to transition into the next half of this section. But like I said earlier, if you guys have questions, you can feel free to let us know or reach out to any of us. But yeah, thanks guys.
Okay, we're on section 8. Basics of investing. Basics of investing. Okay, how many of you guys have investments? Okay, cool. Nice. Okay, good. Yes, investing is good. It's important. So, what is investing? It is using your money to make more money, essentially. Okay, stocks are buying small pieces of companies and are generally considered high risk and high reward. Okay, and bonds are loaning your money. Okay, which is low risk, low reward. Okay, that's the basic idea. So stocks and bonds are the two ways that people generally invest. Okay, so stock. Are you guys familiar with this stuff? A stock is like you buy a stock in Apple or whatever, and if Apple does well as a company, then it's worth more, and then you can get dividend checks from any stocks. So every quarter or something like that, they'll send you a check for your percentage of the company's profits, and then you can cash that check. Okay, but these days, most of the money that you're earning is from the increase in value of your stock. Okay, and bonds are things like you can buy, government bonds where you're essentially loaning money to the government. Okay, and then you're getting a relatively low rate of interest in return. Now, the idea here is that the general wisdom in investing is that when you're younger, you want to be more high risk. You want to own more stocks, but as you get older, you want to transfer more and more of that into bonds. Okay, and the idea is that when you're young, if there's a stock market collapse or the company that you invest in, if they go bankrupt and you lose all your money, well, you still have time to make more. But if you invest all your money that you have and you're like, you're 50 and you're getting ready to retire, and then the stock market collapses, or and then the company dies, and then you have nothing, right, to retire on, right? Which is sadness. So that's the general idea of investing. So what you want to do is have a portfolio of several different investments. When you want a well-diversified portfolio, this is investments in many different things. And the idea here is that, so if you put all of your money on Amazon, boy, that's a really smart bet, right? If you did that like 5 years ago, you'd be really happy today. Okay, but for every company like Amazon, there's also companies like Research in Motion. You guys know Research in Motion? They used to make a very popular device called a BlackBerry. Okay, my friend made a lot of money off of RIM. Okay, back in the day, he made a ton of money because they blew up and their stock went crazy. And then a little device called the iPhone came out. Okay, and at the time it was like, oh, they can't do phones, right? They don't know what they're doing. And then it dominated the market. It killed Research in Motion. Okay, Research in Motion died like overnight. Okay, nobody walked around with BlackBerries anymore. And that's the danger of investing in a tech company like that. Okay, tech is notoriously dangerous because there can be another technology that comes out and just demolishes them and stuff like that. So all of these types of companies have risks and rewards. Generally speaking, the higher the potential reward, the greater the risk is. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Now, to understand why you should invest, you really have to understand compound interest. Okay, I believe, do I have the quote here? I don't have the quote. Okay, I think it was Albert Einstein. I think Albert Einstein said that compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. Something like that, right? Something ridiculous. Most people do not understand the power of compound interest. Okay, compound interest is this. Okay, if you invest $100 and you get a 10% return that compounds annually, let's say. So what happens is, after a year, you get $10. Okay, so now you have $110. And then the next year, you get how much? $11, right? And so you got a little bit more than $10. And it keeps going up like that. And it goes up and it goes up and up. And after a while, the effects get actually really impressive. So I gave you some figures so that you can understand how this really works, okay? So this is compounding monthly. And so if you saved $200 every month, okay, after 35 years, your money would only have grown to $148,000 at 3% interest rate. Okay, that's a 3% rate of return, compounding monthly. Okay, at a 6% interest rate, you would have grown to $286,000. Okay, that's if you're saving $200 every month. Okay, and 6% interest rate, that's very doable. That's very doable. Okay. That's very doable. Now, if you were very aggressive and you did well in your investing, you could potentially hit a 12% interest rate. That's not crazy. Lots of people hit 12% interest rates if they invest wisely. Okay, and if you were to do that, saving just $200 a month, investing for 35 years, you would retire with over $1 million. Okay, 1.3 million. Does that make sense? How this works? Like, compound interest is really powerful, and that's only that's putting aside $200 a month. That's not very much, right? Everyone can do that. Right? And the point here is that there's no reason why all of you can't retire as millionaires. Well, there is a good reason, but it's more systemic. Okay, if the market crashes, okay, then you won't. Okay, if we have a dollar collapse, which I'll get into in a little bit, then that won't happen. But the reality is we do live in the most prosperous time in human history. And if you invest and you invest smartly, okay, there really is no reason why you can't retire as a millionaire. You should. Okay? Does that make sense, how compound interest works? Very powerful. Now, there's a couple different factors that come into play here. First of all, that's a 35-year investment period. Okay, 35-year investment period. It takes time. It takes time. Time is the most key factor. It's best to start early. As soon as you graduate, okay, you should get a job, and you should start putting away money. Okay, now there is a big problem, okay, with this, because if you could start investing right after you graduate, you'd have a lot of time until you finish, until you retire, right, to be investing and compounding more and more interest. But I'll tell you the thing that kills it, okay? It's debt, okay? Debt, most people have no idea how devastating debt is, right? Because they don't understand investment. What debt does is it's compound interest working against you in the opposite way, okay? Like, the killer is, just being blunt, it's credit cards, okay? Do not max your credit card. Do not spend more on your credit card than you can afford. Credit cards have ridiculously high interest rates, okay? That's compound interest working against you. And it's very devastating when you're young and you have no great high-paying job, Okay, so always when you're using credit cards, I recommend you get a credit card as long as you treat it like a debit card. Okay, get a credit card, but treat it like a debit card. Don't spend more money than you have. And if you can't control yourself, then cut up your credit card. Okay, credit cards are great because you want to start building credit. You need credit to get loans, right? To apply for a housing loan if you ever want to buy a house and something like that later in life, you need to start building up your credit. But if you can't control yourself, then it's better to cut up your card rather than let it get out of control. Does that make sense? Okay. Very important, because this is what debt does. Not only is the compound interest working against you, okay, it's that it pushes back the time for you to be able to start investing, right? Ideally, as soon as you're out of college, you could start investing. The problem is, most people these days have a lot of student debt they need to pay off first. And so what ends up happening is you're paying off all this debt, and it's like you're investing, right? Except you're not investing. You're just paying off money that you borrowed, right? Generally, the rule of thumb is this. Everything that you borrow, you're going to have to pay back double. That's generally the rule of thumb. So if you took out $20,000 in student loans, you're probably, by the end of your loan term, you're going to end up paying back about $40,000. That's normal, okay? So you should be very careful about taking out debt, okay? It's become like common wisdom these days to just pull out debt. But the reality is, it is incredibly devastating. And I was going to say this, but I'm going to talk about this because it is relevant. Okay, look, in the next section we're going to do politics. That's after lunch, okay? Generally speaking, when the government tries to help, it always makes things worse. Okay, this is the general rule of thumb. Okay, if the government tries to help, it always makes things worse. So what happened was the government decided that it wanted to help people go to college. That sounds really wonderful. Yeah, let's help people go to college. We want people to get a college degree. So what did they do? They, passed bills that basically made federal money available for cheap student loans, right? Subsidized loans. How many of you guys are on subsidized federal loans? Right, probably a bunch of us. I did federal loans for grad school. And that money is available. It's like, oh, why does that money exist? Why is that there for you? Well, because the government's trying to help you go to college, okay? The problem with this is what it has done, it has now convinced everybody that they should go to college, right? Why? Because everyone can get a relatively cheap loan for college. What that do, it drove up the supply. Now, all of a sudden, everybody and their mom is like, yes, let's all go to college. Well, what did that do? Well, it caused tuition rates to skyrocket, right, over the past 20, 30 years, right? They've been going up 3 times the rate of inflation, okay? So 3 times the rate of inflation now, and it's caused a second devastating effect, and now it's caused degree inflation. So a bachelor's degree today is worth about the same on the open market as a high school degree was like 30, 40 years ago. That's how this works, right? Because it used to be that only some people went to college. And because only some people went to college, it was a valuable thing on a resume. But when everybody goes to college, it's not that valuable anymore. Does that make sense? So that's how this works. So what's actually happened in the government in trying to help everybody, what it's actually done now is it has impoverished everybody. Okay? Now everybody goes to college, and but you graduate with a ton of debt. Okay, so you're basically starting where the high school graduate started 40 years ago, except you're 4 years later and you have a ton of debt. Right? Congratulations. Thank you, government, for all of your help, right? You really messed stuff up, okay? That is the rule of thumb. But that's the world that we're living in, okay? So what I want to tell you is this. Pay off your debt aggressively. Pay off your debt aggressively. That means that you need to live below your means. Okay, you have to live below your means. Okay, what you should do after you graduate is, I always recommend people to move out of the home, because living with your parents is just craziness. Okay, especially if you're used to freedom and independence. I moved back into my home, after I graduated from Berkeley, and I just couldn't take it. I was like, Mom, I love you. I just can't live with you anymore, right? And so I moved out, and I moved in with a friend. And, we shared rent and stuff like that. And that's exactly what I recommend you to do. Okay, live with like 5 people. Okay, shove like 10 people into a 2-bedroom apartment if you can, or if your landlord will let you. Right? That's fine. Do what you can to get your monthly payments really low. Why? Because you need to be aggressive in paying off your debt. Okay, the sooner you pay off your debt, all right, the sooner you can start to invest. And investing is what you want to do. because the sooner you start to invest, the longer you have for compound interest to work its magic, so that by the time you retire, you can actually retire with quite a bit of money. Okay, and again, I gave you figures for saving $200 a month. That is not undoable. That's very doable, right? All of us can do that. I'm an example of somebody who, I have one of the worst paying jobs in America, okay? Pastor, okay? This is one of the worst paying jobs ever. It is the worst. A master's in divinity, which is your standard pastor's degree, is considered the worst economic investment in higher education, okay? It's the worst because it's like a 4-year master's degree, right? It's like a super long master's degree, and then the job that it leads to is like there's too many people that want to be pastors, and the pay is like nothing, right? So I'm in a worse financial position than any of you guys. So be encouraged, okay? You're in a better financial position than any of your pastors, all right? Now, that being said, what you want to do is you want to be honest about your income, okay? You have to learn to live below your means. This is very important. Learn to live below your means, okay? You know what happens to people who win the lottery? A very high percentage of them go bankrupt within 10 years, right? And why does that happen? That's also what happens to professional athletes. Okay, a very high percentage of them go bankrupt after within 10 years of leaving the league. Right? Some of them it's much sooner than that. Why does that happen? Because when you get a ton of money all at once, you go, oh, dude, I have like $1 million. Let's go to Hawaii, right? Let's spend. We'll just spend a little bit. Right? But then you go to Hawaii and you're like, dude, I can afford it. I'm going to eat like filet mignon, right? I'm going to get like that $200 bottle of wine. And like, dude, this is good. And you start to eat really good food and you start to get used to nice hotel rooms and you get used to that life because you can afford it. It's fine, no problem. Except, right, when the money spigot turns off, your contract's done, you're out of the league, now you're used to staying at like 4-star hotels and eating filet mignon. Right? How do you go back to the lifestyle of a poor person? It's so difficult to do. You're used to all of these high luxury, lifestyle. Does that make sense? Right? So here's my plea to you. When you graduate and you get your first high-paying job, the temptation is, all right, I'm going to buy like a nice TV, right? I'm going to start eating out all the time. I'm going to start doing all this kind of stuff. And I want to tell you, don't do that. Keep living like a college student, okay? Keep living like a college student. Put all that extra money into paying off your debt and start to make investments, okay? If you do that, you can actually, do really well for yourself. And by the way, that's important. Everything I teach, which is about not putting the world first, okay? That means not loving money more than Jesus, okay? You should still be a good steward of money, right? You're going to be judged in eternity for how we use your money. So hear me. I'm not saying you should make a vow of poverty. I'm saying you should make a vow of generosity. You understand the difference between those two things? Okay? You're not called to make zero money. You're called to make a lot of money, some of us, okay? And then we're called to be generous with it. But you can't be generous with it if you're used to spending it all on yourself. Does that make sense? That's the killer, okay? Be content. Mike Bickle, he always says, be content with food, shelter, and air conditioning. Right? Like, I think there's some wisdom to that, right? Food, shelter, and air conditioning. You don't need all the other crazy stuff in life, okay? And try and live that way. And then what you'll do is you'll make wise investments, okay? And you'll have lots of money that you can use for kingdom purposes, and you'll be rewarded for that if you use it for kingdom purposes. Does that make sense? That's the heart of everything that I'm saying. It's not a bad thing to become a millionaire. That's a good thing. That's wise stewardship of your finances. Okay, it's a bad thing if you use it all on yourself. Okay, I'm not saying that you should use all of it on yourself so that you can live like a king. All right, no, let's be generous with our finances, but let's also be wise stewards of our finances. Make sense? Okay, good. All right, so pay off your debt as fast as possible. I know people that became millionaires in their 30s. Okay, because they were very aggressive in their 20s, paying off all their debt and then investing like crazy, right? Like you eat rice. You eat rice all the time, right? Never eat out. Very disciplined. You can actually start investing really wisely, and then you can make a lot of money relatively fast, okay? Especially if you have a good paying job, Okay, and look, if you graduate and you work hard and you get into a good field, you can have a very decent paying job. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to give you the basics of investing. That's all big picture. Okay, yeah. Question. Yeah, the practicalities. All right, let's do it. You ready? D. Opening an IRA. Who knows what IRA stands for? Yes, it says it right next to it, right? An individual retirement account is a tax-protected account that you can open at a financial institution, a brokerage. Okay, what's the name of a brokerage? Somebody give me one brokerage that exists out there. Charles Schwab. Yes, they were the original low-cost brokerage, okay? So it used to be that there were all these full-service brokerages. These are like Merrill Lynch, right? These are like the Wall Street, banking firms, right? The guys that wear like super nice suits, right? And then you come into Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs, right? And they give you the high treatment. Why? Because they want you to trust them. They want you to trust them with all your money and investment, and they're going to charge you a ton for all that they do, okay? And that's like a high service brokerage, okay? Charles Schwab was actually one of the early low service brokerages, and the idea is, okay, we're not going to give you all the fancy treatment, okay? We're just going to make the trades for you, right? So we'll charge you a lot less for these trades, okay? And Charles Schwab used to trade something like, charge like $30-something per trade. Okay, nowadays, you can make trades for really cheap, okay? There's Scotts-Trade. There's a number of different brokerages that are out there. It's been a while since I kept up with all this kind of stuff, but there's lots of different brokerages out there. We use Fidelity, right? Vanguard is all these different investment houses and stuff like that, and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about this. But all you're going to do is you're going to pick one. Now, I'm going to recommend, okay, that you pick Fidelity or Vanguard, okay? I'm going to recommend that you pick Fidelity or Vanguard. Right now, oh, you know what? Okay, my main credit card is this one. It's a Fidelity credit card, and it gives 2% cash back on every purchase I make, okay? All that 2% goes right into my Fidelity investment account, okay? So all my rewards points, I used to get like rewards points to buy like gift cards and stuff like that, okay? Now it just goes right into my investments, okay? So 2% of everything I spend money on is invested for me. Does that make sense? So I'd recommend you do that. Now, I'm going to tell you in a second why I'd recommend Vanguard and Fidelity, but let's hold off until I give you a little bit more understanding of how this all works, okay? An IRA, an individual retirement account, is this. It's a tax-sheltered account. So the idea is this. You guys don't know that much about taxes yet, but you will. You will know much about taxes very soon, okay? Because you live in a country where if you're middle class, 50% or more of your income is going to go towards taxes, okay? That's if you add up all the different taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, all this kind of stuff. But the income tax is the big one, okay? Every year, the IRS is going to say, hey, time to pay your taxes, and you'll go, online, and you'll tell them how much money you make, and they'll tell you, okay, well, you owe us this humongous number, right? And that's all the money that you owe us. Now, when you're young and you make very little money, tax day is actually good news because you actually get a tax refund, right? I love tax day, okay? I look forward to tax day, right? Because I am poor. So I get a tax refund. All the money they withheld from my paychecks, right, they give it back to me. And I'm like, yes, thank you. I can use that money, okay? But for most people, especially if you're middle class, okay, it's going to be payday. You are going to lose a bunch of money on tax day, okay? So what you want to do is you want to put as much money into a tax-sheltered account that is non-taxable. The increase on that is non-taxable. It's wonderful, okay? That's what you want to do. That's an IRA. So you can open up an IRA, and any money that you put in there, okay, the profits on that will be untaxed. You don't have to pay the government any money from that thing. Now, if you withdraw the money before you reach retirement, then you have to pay taxes on it. The idea is that you're going to put the money in there and you're not going to touch it until you retire. Okay? So that's what you should do. And now you can put away $4,000 a year into an IRA. And if you get married, your spouse can also put $4,000 into an IRA. So you could max out, you can add $8,000, a married couple can add $8,000 every single year into a tax-sheltered IRA. Okay? Very doable. You should do it. Okay? Investment strategy number one, you should try and max your IRA every single year. You should try and put $4,000 in it every single year. Okay. Now, I've never done that because I'm still paying all my student loans, right? Okay. I hate student loans. You should hate student loans. All right. They suck. But that's the nature of the beast right now. Pay off your debt as fast as possible. I try and be aggressive in paying off my debt. Okay. Pay off your debt as fast as possible. Soon as all of your debt is paid off, okay, then you want to start really pushing investments. Okay. Question? The money you withdraw. Yes. So if you have all this money in an IRA and you're like, oh, shoot, we have an emergency. I need to pull some money from that IRA account. When you pull it out, then you have to pay taxes on it. Yeah. As long as you leave it in there, okay, when you retire, I forget the age, it's like 55 or something like that, then you can pull all the money out, no taxes. And that's what you want to do. Okay? So that's the IRA. Again, you want to max your IRA every year. Okay? All right, number 2 is a 401k plan. How many of you guys have heard about this 401k stuff? Okay? One of the great benefits that many employers give you is a 401k. Okay, now the idea behind this is it is a matching program. So the money that you put into your 401k, your employer will match it, that amount. Okay? That is that's a wonderful benefit. They double your money, right? So if you have a 401k, if you're lucky enough to have a 401k, we do not have 401ks here at Thanksgiving Church, okay? If you're lucky enough to have one, you want to max your 401k, okay? You want to max that, okay? Now, if you do that, if you max your IRA and your 401k, and you put that money in the account, but you have to decide how that money is going to be invested, okay? So the money goes into your IRA, and then you tell your IRA, hey, I want to use this money to buy Apple stock. Okay, now you have Apple stock, but it's in your IRA. Does that make sense how that works? Okay, so if you invest it wisely and you just do those two things, that is a solid investment strategy. Okay, if you just do those two things, you just max your IRA and you just max your 401k, you should retire as a millionaire. You should retire as a millionaire if you're doing it right. Okay, and there's not some great stock market collapse, dollar collapse. Okay, all right. Index funds, and this is the part where I really need to explain stuff, and then we'll get into questions. Okay, what is an index fund? How many of you guys know what the index is? Oh, so nobody knows. Okay, I will tell you. Don't worry. Okay, do you know what a mutual fund is? Who knows what a mutual fund is? Yeah, JJ, tell me, bro. Okay, so it's a little fuzzy. Okay, it's really simple. Okay, the idea is this: I'm not an expert, so I don't know which companies to invest in. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Guys, all of us, let's give our money, okay, to Chloe, because Chloe is an expert. Chloe's an expert, okay? And she is going to buy all of our stocks for us, and she'll take a small commission, right? Because we got to give her something, right? Because she's doing all the hard work, okay? That's a mutual fund. It's a fund that we mutually get, and then there's a mutual fund manager who makes the decisions on which stocks to buy. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, if you're investing at Goldman Sachs, that's what you're really paying for. You're paying for some, highbrow Wall Street expert, right, to make the decisions that will get you the most money. Okay, now here's what I'm going to tell you. Studies have shown that mutual funds are a big fat fraud. Okay, studies have shown that mutual funds are a big fat fraud, and what I mean by that is this. Okay, what you want to compare any mutual fund to is the index. The index is the overall growth of the market. Okay, so how many of you guys have heard of the S&P 500? Okay. Alrighty then. S&P 500 is 500 of the largest companies in America. Okay, so if you just took a stock that bought one little piece of all the largest 500 companies in America, okay, that would be the S&P 500. Okay, and that would track the general market of the United States. Okay, that's our general market. How the general market is doing, the index is the market. Does that make sense? Okay. Studies have shown that over a 10-year period, the index, the S&P 500, beats 90% of mutual funds. Does that make sense? That's an important figure, okay? Over a 10-year period, the S&P 500, the index, beats 90% of mutual funds. So why the heck do people pay for these mutual funds, okay? Because they get conned. That's the essence of this, okay? The essence is they get conned because they're making money. They're making money. Guess what? Everybody's making money if you invest, okay? people who invest poorly are not making money, okay? But you have to invest really poorly. Okay, let me put it to you this way. If you go to Vegas, you will almost certainly do worse. Okay? No, I'll say this. There's like a 60 to 70% chance that you were going to lose money on that Vegas trip. Okay? Now some percentage, like what, 30% of people or whatever, actually make money. Well, that sounds pretty good. Okay? Maybe I'll be one of those 30%. Okay, maybe. Now, if you go to Vegas, regularly, if you go 10 times, what are the chances that you are going to come out of those 10 trips doing, positive? Almost nothing, right? You are almost for sure going to lose money in 10 trips. Does that make sense? Some math major tell me what the actual, 30% times 30% times 30%. I don't know what how they work that, but the chances are overwhelming that you're going to lose money. The stock market is the opposite. Does that make sense? The stock market, especially the American stock market, because we have one of the greatest market economies in the world. We do have the greatest market economy in the world, okay? The American stock market is the opposite. It's like the anti-Vegas, right? If you invest in the stock market, it's really hard to lose money, okay? It's like you're gambling, but you're actually doing it in a way that is almost certain to make you win. Right? That's how amazing investing is, because you're investing in these companies, and if you do it right, as long as you don't, as long as you follow some basic investing advice, which I'm about to give you, then you're almost certainly going to do well. Okay, the question is, how well are you going to do? And if you trust one of those Goldman Sachs guys, what's going to happen is he's going to take large commission chunks, okay, from your earnings, and that's a huge part of why you're not going to make as much money as if you had just invested in the index. So what happened was there was a dude who made a company called Vanguard. Okay, and Vanguard was basically the first of these companies that came out and said, look, here's what we're going to do. We've created a fund that you can invest in that just buys a little piece of every company. It's a non-actively managed fund. It's a passively managed fund, meaning it's a computer that just does all the work. So there's no person that we need to pay. So the commissions that we're going to charge are going to be almost nothing, right? Very slight commissions. And like I said, over a 10-year period, the S&P 500 beats the Goldman Sachs guys, 90% of the time. So it's a way better way to invest. Okay, so the way I'm gonna encourage you and recommend that you invest is to just buy index funds. Okay, just buy index funds. And Vanguard is kind of the big poster child for it. I think Warren Buffett said that the founder of Vanguard, who just recently passed away, has done more for American investors than any person alive. Right? He said that he's like the greatest. He should be celebrated as an American hero. Right? Because it's true. It's the best way to invest. The best way to invest is don't try and time the market, okay? When you're trying to time the market, now you're competing against all the Goldman Sachs guys, because this is what they do. This is what they're experts at. They're experts at selling stocks to suckers, right, when they're overpriced. Okay, that's what Goldman Sachs guys do. They make money off of those people that are trying to pick individual stocks and try and sell right at the right time. People are trying to time the market. Well, now you're competing against all the Wall Street experts. Okay, and that's a losing battle over time. So I recommend don't try and time the market. That means, I think Apple is, about to, they're going to, this new iPhone I think is going to do really well, right? So I'm going to buy the stock now, and then it's going to do really well, and then I'm going to sell later, right? That's trying to time the market. Don't do that, okay? Because those Wall Street experts, that's what they do professionally, okay? And guess, when you're buying a stock, who are you buying it from? That Wall Street expert. That's who you're buying it from. That person is selling you his stock because he thinks now the money's worth more than what that stock is worth. Does that make sense? That's all priced in. Okay, was that too complex? I feel like I'm losing some of you a little bit. Give me a little bit. Okay, a little bit, Fernando. All right, no worries, man. Rule of thumb, buy the index. Buying an index fund, okay? Buying an index fund. Okay, that's how I'm invested. I'm invested in index funds. I recommend you be invested in index funds, and then just leave it. Just leave your money. Don't touch it, okay? Don't try and, don't watch, Yahoo Finance and be like, oh, yeah, that company's doing really well, so now is the time to sell, and now's the time to buy this. Don't try and do that. Just buy the index, leave the money, and be done with it, okay? That's for 95%, 99% of people, that is the best way to invest, okay? The only other great way to invest is to be a value investor. So how many of you guys have heard of Warren Buffett? Warren Buffett is the godfather of value investing, okay? This is what Warren Buffett did, Okay, he went to a great, amazing school. I think he went to Columbia or something like that. He learned everything you need to know, and then he started an insurance company. You guys know how insurance companies work? Okay, you give them money every month, and they hold your money. And then when something bad happens to one of you, they give you some money, right? So he took all this money that people are giving him, and he invested all that money, right? Because he's really smart. Okay, and what he did. The way he value investors do, is they meticulously study individual companies. Okay, so Warren Buffett looked at Coca-Cola, and he talked to all of the chairman of the board, the leadership of the company. He looked at their financials. He looked at the market index and how they were competing against others, and he said, you know what? I think Coca-Cola, is seriously undervalued right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy 10% of the company, which is what he owns, right? Warren Buffett, I think, owns 10% of Coke. Okay, he didn't buy it all at once, but he buys a huge portion of a company, and then he just sits on it and he holds it, confident that because he knows this business so well, he knows that Coca-Cola's value is going to rise in time. Okay, that's value investing. That is the only legitimate kind of vesting that there is. Okay, the only legitimate kind of vesting that there is value investing, and really only experts can do it well. Okay. Me and you going on, whatever investing website and reading about a company for 10 minutes. Okay. No. No, you do not know enough about the industry or about the company to tell if that stock is rightly priced. You seriously have to do a lot of research and understand these businesses in a great way to be a true investor. Okay, so what we're doing is not true investing. Warren Buffett is a real investor. Okay, most of the people who are playing the stock market are really just like gamblers. That's what they're doing. Now they're playing again at the anti-Vegas casino. So the chances are they're going to make money. But the question is, are you going to make as much money as you would if you had just bought the index and just held it? And the answer is, for more than 90% of the people, no, you're not going to. Does that make sense? Okay, I think I hope I have made a fairly compelling case for why you should buy the index. Okay, I recommend, if you really want to do some research on this, you can read 2 books. You can read The 4 Pillars of Investing. It's a classic investing book. You can read A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Okay, and then you can read for hundreds of pages what I just told you in the past 5 minutes. Okay, all right. Let me pause right there, and let me take questions, comments. Yes. Yes. Now, the 401k is going to depend on your employer, because your employer is usually going to have specific plans that you have to essentially buy into. Now, that's fine. For the most part, you can trust their plans and just buy into it. Okay. For the index funds, yes. If you want very specific practical instructions, I will tell you exactly what I bought, and I would recommend that you do the same thing. Okay. Both Fidelity and Vanguard have age retirement target accounts. Now, the idea of this is, say, like I am planning to retire in 2060. Let's say hypothetically, okay, 2060. That's when I'm going to retire. So what I would do is I would buy the 2060 account, okay, and I can Google it in 5 seconds to tell you what the stock ticker number is, okay, and I would buy that, and what it does is it buys a bunch of different index funds, okay, that are heavily weighted towards stocks when you're young, and then as you get older, it re-weights them and reinvests them more towards bonds as you get older. Does that make sense? So by the time you retire, you're going to own 90% bonds and 10% stocks. But when you start investing, it's going to be 90% stocks and 10% bonds. Does that make sense? So that's my recommendation. That's what I do. I forget mine's like 2050 or something like that, right? The age retirement, but it's all passively managed fund. And, every time I buy shares of that, I put money in it, there's zero charge, zero commission, because I do it all through Fidelity. Okay, so that would be my recommendation. I think what I'm doing right now is pretty solid. That's why I'm doing it. Okay, yeah, if you want to get a credit card, get the Fidelity account card. Now, I think you have to build up your credit a little ways before they'll let you have one of these green babies. Okay, so you just get your student credit card, treat it like a debit card. Don't spend more than you can afford. Right, but when you go out to eat, use it, and you get rewards points. You get a gift. You can get gift cards at the end of the year or whatever. All right, build up your credit, and then you can get on some of these better credit cards when you build up your credit, and then you can apply for a housing loan when you get older and all that kind of good stuff. By the way, cryptocurrency, I urge you not to do that. That's super ridiculously high risk. Okay, that's ridiculously high risk. You should not do anything super high risk unless you have a very good reason why. Okay, like you really understand stuff. Like most of those types of cryptocurrency things, those are pyramid schemes. Okay, they make money by convincing you to get it because that increases the value of that cryptocurrency, right? It's really a pyramid scheme. So don't fall for that stuff. We don't know which cryptocurrency is going to win out, which one's going to be valuable, and they're all going to play on that hope. Yeah, maybe it's this crypto, right? Maybe it's this one. This is going to be the one, right? Come on, dude, invest all your money, right? No, don't do that. That's just helping him, right? That's helping him. Does that make sense? Okay, so be careful about cryptos and stuff like that. Anything that's super high risk, okay, anything that's super high risk, be careful with it. Okay, any other questions on this before I move on to the last point? Okay. All right, my last thing. I'm gonna make I'm gonna encourage you to consider also investing in some precious metals, gold and silver. Okay. Now you don't need to be all gold and silver, but look, what gold and silver is, it is a hedge, it is a protection against the dollar collapsing. Okay. Now this is something that most people have very little, exposure to, this idea that the dollar could collapse. But let me put it to you like this: there has never been a fiat currency in history that has not collapsed. They've all collapsed eventually, right? And why is that? Because governments can't control their money printing. They can't control it. It's too tempting, right? Money printing is so tempting for a government. And guess what? That's exactly what we did in 2007, 2008. Do you guys know the housing? Okay, what ended up happening there is a bunch of banks almost went out of business, and that's because they were involved in all these subprime mortgages, loans, and stuff like that. And so what happened was the government saved them. How did it do that? By basically printing a ton of money, by borrowing a ton of money, and by printing a ton more money. Okay, it's called quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is a big fat lie. That means money printing. Okay, that's what it means. It just sounds way better when you say quantitative easing. Okay, it's money printing. We went on 4 rounds of money printing. Okay, in 2008 or something like that. We printed a ton of money and we borrowed a ton more money to stave off financial collapse. Okay, the reason why I bring this up is because it is very, very possible that we see a dollar collapse in our lifetimes. Okay, it is very, very possible that we see a dollar collapse in our lifetimes. So this is kind of the hedge to everything that I'm talking about here. Okay, all of the wisdom that I'm giving you is true if the dollar does not collapse. But if the dollar collapses, okay, I'll tell you what, the wealth that gets wiped out is the middle class wealth, which is stocks and bonds. Okay, a lot of those bonds especially will get wiped out. What doesn't get wiped out is real estate. Okay, if your wealth is in a lot of land, okay, that won't get wiped out. And if you own a lot of precious metals, okay, those precious metals will not get wiped out. Okay, it used to be that a gold coin used to be worth about $300, something like 20 years ago or something like that. Okay, today I don't know what it's over $1,000. I would be almost certain, right? If there was a dollar collapse, it would almost certainly jump over $10,000 and probably higher than that. Okay, depending on how serious the dollar collapse was. Okay, but look, this has happened in many countries. This is what happened in Germany. Okay, if you guys know the history of Germany, Germany owed a lot of money to its allies. That was their punishment for starting World War I. Okay, they started World War I. They started World War I. Okay, air quotes, scare quotes, because they didn't really start it. They just got blamed for it. Okay, and they had to pay reparations, had to pay for the war. And so what do? They just printed tons of money. Right? They fine, we'll pay you. Right? Here's 10,000 worthless Deutschmarks now. Right? And they paid it off like that. They devalued. They basically killed their own currency, and it wiped out the wealth of the middle class in Germany. Okay. Now that happens in time. Guess what? Do you know how much money we owe right now? $22 trillion. Okay, somebody do some basic math here on your phone. Okay, what the heck is 22 trillion divided by 330 million? That's the population of the United States. Too many zeros, bro. I don't know. Just do Siri, dude. Okay. 22 trillion divided by 330 million. That's the population of the United States. It is some astronomical number. Am I doing this wrong? It's been a long time since I've done math. This is right? I'm trying to figure out how much each of us owes. $330 million. I know there's too many zeros, huh? There's too many zeros here. All right, somebody simplify this. It's like what? 666,000? 66,000? Now you're confusing me. Okay, that sounds right. 666,000. That's your portion of the federal debt. That's how much, we all owe if we're actually going to pay off this debt. What's the income of our national government in 1 year? I think it's a little over $1 trillion. The tax. Do you guys know? Can you look that up real quick? How much money did the federal government pull in taxes in 2017 or whatever? I bet it's about a trillion, maybe a trillion, 1.2 trillion or something like that. Okay. Okay, in 2015 it was 1.48 trillion. So that's going to be somewhere close to what it is now. Okay? But actually we had all these tax cuts, so it might be lower now. All right. That's how much our entire nation, brings in a year. We owe what? Somebody do the math. Was it like 12 times that, 13, 14 times that? Right? Imagine what that is. Let's put that in perspective, okay? I'm not going to tell you how much money. Let's pretend I make $100,000 a year. Oh, that would be so glorious if I made $100,000. Let's pretend I made $100,000 a year. What would my debt be, right? It would be like, what's 12, 13 times that, like 1.3 million. That's like what I would owe. $1.3 million. How am I going to pay that off if I make $100,000 a year? I'm not going to pay that off. That's how. Okay? This is the problem. We probably have no way to pay off this debt. We probably have no way to pay off this debt. And the dirty secret is, guess who most of that debt is to? Well, a lot of it is to China, yes. But a lot of it is to us. All those people that buy bonds. Okay? Those bonds, a huge portion of those bonds are government debt that you're buying with the idea that the government is paying you rates of interest on it, right? So do you understand how this works? One day, we are going to get to the place where it becomes obvious that we can't pay off this debt. Why? Because there is no government plan to actually cut spending. Can I tell you? The only people in the government that want to cut spending are the people who are like me, Tea Party. Okay, Freedom Wing Caucus of the Republican Party. This is like a group of this is like 10%. Okay, 10% of our Congress right now actually wants to cut spending. 90% of our Congress has no intentions of cutting spending, right? They do not want to cut spending. They're just arguing about how much more they want to spend. Does this make sense? There is no realistic timetable or plan for how we're going to pay off this debt. Now, what is saving us right now is that the U.S. has had the most stable currency, in the past 200 years. And because of that, because we've been so faithful with our finances, most other countries have dollars as their reserve currency. They own a lot of dollars, right? Why? Because if their currency fails, well, they have all these dollars. It's like the gold of the world. The problem is we've been so irresponsible with our debt over the past 60 years that a lot of countries are starting to go, is this wise for us to have the US dollar as the reserve currency? And a lot of countries are really starting to think about changing that now because they're seeing that we're out of control with our debt, which is true. Okay, we went from being the greatest creditor nation in the world to being the greatest debtor nation in the world in one generation. Okay? Yes. Then there's probably going to be a dollar collapse. If there's a dollar collapse, what that means is probably hyperinflation. Okay? Your dollars will be worth less and less and less very quickly. Okay? And what that means, what hyperinflation does is it wipes out the wealth of the middle class. That's when it's happening. And then we can pay off all our debt. Right? You'll get a worthless check from the government for all your bonds. Okay, that won't be worth the money it's printed on. Okay, and China will get screwed too. And a lot of other nations that loan us that money. And guess what? They are a little afraid that might happen, which is why a number of them are talking right now about selling off their dollars. If a lot of people start to seriously sell off the dollars, that will trigger a dollar collapse. Does that make sense? So I'm not trying to freak you out because we should have lives built on the kingdom of God. So even if there is a dollar collapse, like there was in Germany, okay, we should have hope that the Lord will provide for us. Does that make sense? But we need to be sober-minded about this. We need to be sober-minded about it. The economists that I trust the most would say that we're almost certainly going to have a dollar collapse within our lifetimes. Okay. So I have some gold. Okay. I keep it in a very secret place that nobody will be able to find, okay? I don't have a lot of gold, just a very little bit, okay? But I keep it just in case, so I have something, right, that my family can live on. So I recommend that you have some gold and silver, okay? Some gold and silver, or if your family owns land, that's a good thing, okay? It's a good thing to own land, or any more tangible assets, right? Because if there is a dollar collapse, a lot of that money in stocks and bonds, especially bonds, will get wiped out. Okay, any questions about that? I know that's kind of a sobering note to end this session on. But this is the reality of the world that we're living in. Okay, this is why we should rebuke our nation, right? Rebuke our greedy politicians. Okay, look, they're okay. I'm getting the politics. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes, and then we're gonna go to lunch. Okay, our politicians buy their votes by promising money. That's what this is about. Okay, Bernie Sanders, God bless his heart, is buying votes by promising free stuff to people. This is what the founding fathers, they warned about this, okay? They warned that this could happen, that people could realize that they could vote for themselves money from the public purse, okay? And they warned that if this happened, that would be the end of the republic, okay? And that's the situation that we have today. All of these, like, did you see, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's, Green New Deal? It is complete insanity. Right, is total insanity. Like that, we were just going to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of new dollars that we don't have, right, to have this pipe dream of a environmentalist progressive utopia. Okay, it makes zero sense. But these types of ideas are becoming compelling for many millennials. Okay, look, the Democratic Party has gone insane. Okay, I say this lovingly because I understand that for many young people, they're very sympathetic to the Democratic Party. Okay, you are being sympathetic with insanity. Okay, it is utter insanity what the wisdom, the lack of wisdom that has overtaken the Democratic Party in our times. Okay, it's just total insanity, and yet this is the battle that we're fighting. Okay, so I lovingly say this: we should be prepared for disaster. Okay, be prepared for disaster. There's no other way to put it. That's why I try and tell all Christians: be sober-minded, knowing that the days are evil. Okay, doesn't mean that you're like, I'm not saying you should hoard gold and make your own little food hoard, although that's wise. I have food in case of disaster or stuff like that I keep, and I think you should be prepared for it, but should not live in terror or fear of it. Does that make sense? Don't live in terror or fear, okay? But be prepared for it in case the worst should happen, and don't build your life on this life. Okay, don't build the house of your life on this world, because it will fail you. Okay, the wind and the rain will come and destroy your house. That's the way Scripture puts it, your spiritual house. Okay, don't do it. Build your house on the rock of Christ, and then you'll have treasures in heaven. Store up treasures in heaven, right? Through loaning to the poor, right? Or excuse me, giving to the poor. He who gives to the poor loans to the Lord, is what Scripture says. And God gives back with the best interest. Okay, eternal interest. Okay, that is always going to be the best investment of our finances, is to invest them in eternity. Okay, through giving to the poor and supporting important kingdom labor. Okay, that is the best use of our finances. And if we do that, we can expect that the Lord will give us back with amazing compound interest in heaven. Okay, in the age to come. And that's really where our wealth and hope lies as Christians. Amen. Okay. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?